In the dim glow of a Manhattan penthouse overlooking the glittering skyline, Alexander Hawthorne lay motionless on his leather sofa, eyes half closed in feigned slumber. The billionaire CEO of Hawthorne Tech, a man whose empire spanned continents and whose decisions moved markets, had orchestrated this little experiment out of sheer boredom and a lingering cynicism about human nature. At 52, with a net worth that could buy small countries, Alex had seen it all: betrayals in boardrooms, sycophants at galas, and relationships that crumbled under the weight of his wealth. Tonight, he wanted to test Elena, his shy maid of 3 months, a quiet woman in her late 30s who barely spoke above a whisper and averted her eyes whenever he entered the room. He'd left a crisp $100 bill peeking from his pocket, wondering if she'd pocket it while thinking him asleep. Little did he know, this simple ruse would unravel the fortress around his heart. Elena Vargas moved through the expansive living room like a shadow, her worn sneakers silent on the marble floors. Born in a small village in Mexico, she'd crossed borders years ago seeking a better life for her family, only to find herself navigating the opulent worlds of New York's elite as a housekeeper. Shy by nature, Elena had learned to blend into the background, her days filled with dusting crystal chandeliers and polishing silver that cost more than her annual salary. Mr. Hawthorne was her latest employer, a stern figure who barked orders via intercom and rarely acknowledged her presence. Tonight, as she tidied the remnants of his solitary dinner, half-eaten steak and an empty whiskey glass, she noticed him sprawled on the sofa, his breathing steady, eyes shut. Assuming he'd dozed off after another long day, she paused, her heart aching with a familiar empathy. How many times had she seen her own father collapse in exhaustion after grueling farm work? Without a second thought, she fetched a soft cashmere blanket from the linen closet and gently draped it over him, tucking it around his shoulders with the care of a mother. Alex felt the warmth of the blanket settle over him, but he remained still, his mind racing. This wasn't theft, it was tenderness. He expected her to notice the money, perhaps hesitate, but instead, she straightened up and glanced around the room. Her eyes landed on the grand piano in the corner, an antique Steinway that Alex hadn't touched in years, not since his wife's passing a decade ago. Elena approached it hesitantly, her fingers brushing the keys as if seeking permission from the silent instrument. Then, softly, she began to play. It was a simple melody, a lullaby from her childhood, notes floating like whispers in the vast space. "Duermit mi niño, duermit ya," she sang under her breath, her voice trembling but pure, laced with the warmth of distant memories. Alex's breath caught. He hadn't heard music in this house since everything changed. As the song filled the air, Elena's thoughts drifted to her own life. Back home in Queens, her apartment was a cramped 2-bedroom shared with her sister and 2 nephews. Her husband had left years ago, leaving her to support their daughter, Maria, who at 12 dreamed of becoming a doctor but struggled in an underfunded school. Elena worked 2 jobs, cleaning by day, waitressing nights, to afford Maria's tutoring, but lately, medical bills from her sister's illness had drained their savings. Yet here, in this palace of excess, she found solace in small acts of kindness. Finishing the lullaby, she noticed the $100 bill protruding from Mr. Hawthorne's pocket. Her eyes widened slightly, not with greed, but with recognition. It was more than her hourly wage, a fortune for someone like her. But instead of taking it, she carefully pushed it back in, ensuring it was secure. "No one should lose what they have," she murmured to herself, her accent thick with sincerity. Alex's heart pounded beneath the blanket. This wasn't the test he'd planned. He'd hired Elena through an agency, knowing little about her beyond her impeccable references. In his world, people took what they could, employees skimmed expenses, partners schemed for shares. But Elena, she was defying every cynical assumption. Pretending to stir, he kept his eyes closed, curious what she'd do next. Elena, oblivious to his wakefulness, moved to the side table where his phone lay, buzzing faintly with unread messages. She didn't touch it, but her gaze softened as she spotted a framed photo half hidden behind a vase, a younger Alex with a woman, both smiling on a beach. It was his late wife, Sophia, lost to cancer when their world was still full of promise. Elena had dusted that photo many times, wondering about the sadness it held. Impulsively, she whispered a quiet prayer in Spanish, crossing herself. "Que Dios te bendiga, Señor. Que encuentres paz en tus sueños." The words pierced Alex like a dagger of light. No one prayed for him anymore. His life was a whirlwind of deals and distractions, void of genuine connection. Tears welled unbidden behind his closed lids, but he fought them back, his mind reeling. How could this woman, paid to clean his messes, see through to his hidden pain? Elena, sensing the room's stillness, decided to leave him be. But as she turned to go, she spotted a crumpled note on the floor near the sofa, something that must have fallen from his pocket. Picking it up, she unfolded it carefully. It was a doctor's report, dated weeks ago. Mr. Hawthorne, the tests confirm early-stage heart condition. Stress management recommended. Her brow furrowed with concern. She knew nothing of his personal life, but this explained the weary lines on his face, the late nights alone. Instead of ignoring it, Elena did something extraordinary. She fetched a pen from the kitchen and scribbled a note on a fresh sheet of paper. Senor Hawthorne, I found this. Please take care of your heart. Drink chamomile tea, it helps my sister. And remember, you are not alone. She placed it beside the report on the table, then quietly exited the room, her shift ending. Alex waited until her footsteps faded before opening his eyes. The penthouse felt different now, warmer somehow. He sat up, the blanket sliding off, and read her note. The simplicity of it, the unsolicited care, broke through his defenses. Tears streamed down his face, hot and unrelenting. For the first time in years, Alexander Hawthorne cried, not from loss or frustration, but from the overwhelming realization that kindness still existed in a world he deemed cold. The next morning, Alex called the agency, but not to complain. He requested Elena's full background, learning of her struggles, the immigration hardships, the single motherhood, the sister's illness. It mirrored his own buried grief. Sophia had fought cancer alone while he buried himself in work. That evening, when Elena arrived, he was waiting in the living room, not behind his desk but seated casually. Elena, he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft, please sit. She hesitated, eyes wide with fear. Had she overstepped? But Alex smiled, genuine for the first time in ages. Last night, I wasn't asleep. I was testing you, foolishly. But you taught me something profound. He shared the story, his voice cracking as he admitted his loneliness. Elena listened, her shyness melting into quiet empathy. Senor, everyone needs care, she replied simply. Even the strong ones. In that moment, an unexpected turn unfolded. Alex offered to fund Maria's education through college. And to cover her sister's treatments. But it wasn't just charity. He asked Elena to teach him Spanish lullabies, to remind him of humanity's softer side. She agreed, and over weeks, their interactions blossomed into friendship. Alex began volunteering at local clinics, channeling his wealth into community programs, rediscovering purpose beyond profits. Months later, at Maria's school graduation, fully sponsored by Alex, Elena watched as he beamed like a proud uncle. The once cynical CEO had transformed, his heart mended not by medicine, but by an act of selfless kindness. As he hugged Elena, tears in his eyes again, he whispered, "You didn't just cover me with a blanket, you wrapped my soul in hope." Their story rippled outward, inspiring others in the city that never sleeps to pause and see the humanity in strangers. In a world often divided by wealth and walls, Elena's quiet compassion proved that true riches lie in the heart. It reminded Alex, and all who heard their tale, that selflessness can bridge the widest gaps, turning tests of distrust into bonds of unbreakable trust. Kindness, after all, is the universal language that heals us all, leaving us inspired to pay it forward, one gentle act at a time.